A worried man ran away from the warehouse because the informant had let him down. He was supposed to be alone at this meeting. Instead, he brought a whole gang with him. 4 guys were killed at this meeting. Another was seriously wounded and captured by the enemy. He sat and bled. At this time, a man approached him. He smirked at Max for crying. The man believed that Yakuza should be tough and tough, not whiny like that. The bandit grabbed the guy by the head and started slamming his head against the concrete floor. The man was interested in whether his opponent was ready to die. He believed that there was no longer any room for the Yakuza in Japan. His guys came to this warehouse ready to fight, but they met spineless monkeys there who don't even know how to kill. This man considered these people to be scum. As he was leaving, the mafioso gave orders to his subordinates to tie a stone to Max, but not to kill him yet. He was sure that the others would come for him and wanted to use him as bait. Max understood that he didn't have much time left, but he couldn't betray his comrades. At this time, he noticed a boy approaching the bandits. He began to worry about this child as well. He didn't understand what this kid was doing in this warehouse. Seeing the guy's look, the bandit assumed that the two knew each other. He thought it was one of Max's comrades and so decided to grab him. The man grabbed the guy sitting on the floor by the hair and lifted him to his feet. The bandit assumed that he was an ordinary thief. He even felt a little sorry for this boy, but he gave the order to kill him because they didn't need witnesses. He thought that this was an ordinary street kid who had nothing to eat, and therefore decided to climb into the warehouse. So, if he was buried under building materials, then no one would suspect anything. This was a common thing for such a small town. The bandit couldn't understand why this street kid had shoes without laces. He was somewhat confused, but still ordered his henchmen to kill the boy. But while he was giving this order, Alex quietly broke free from the man's tenacious hands. The bandit was confused. He did not understand how this child managed to deceive him so cleverly. The boy didn't lose his composure and rushed into the fight. He was so fast that the bandits were unable to catch him. Sneaking up behind one of them, he jumped on him and began to neutralize him. This man's bandits were confused because they didn't even notice when this guy managed to get near their comrade. They were all surprised by Alex's quick movements. At that moment, he took the bandit's pistol out of his pocket and opened fire on the others. The main character managed to kill several people. The surviving bandit took out his pistol and opened fire on the poor boy. But he managed to slip away and all the bullets went to the bandit from whom the boy had borrowed the weapon. The man didn't understand whether he had managed to hit Alex. Max, who was watching what was happening, could not believe that this guy managed to single-handedly take down the entire mafia. The boy took aim at the last survivor and pulled the trigger, but he had already run out of bullets. So he decided to throw the gun at the enemy to distract his attention. The man threw the gun aside, but when he looked in front of him again, he did not find the boy there. Meanwhile, the main character was sneaking up on him, and again he was very fast and confused the enemy with his movements. And then he hit him in the leg. The mafioso fell to his knees from pain and surprise. The boy, who had crept up on him again, threw a cord around his neck and began to strangle his opponent. At that moment, the man realized that Alex was using this Kevlar cord instead of laces on her shoes. And it was certainly not by chance that he ended up in this warehouse. This man and his boys were his target from the start. Alex was a professional killer. After all the enemies were destroyed, the boy ran up to the wounded Max and asked if he could get up on his own. The man was able to do this and rose to his feet. As he left the warehouse, he couldn't believe that this boy had actually killed all these people single-handedly. Then he asked the guy directly who he was. Alex decided not to tell who he was, and only said that the old man asked him to save this man, so he had nothing to fear, because they were not enemies. 12 years have passed since then. Alex was sleeping peacefully on the car seat. His sleep was disturbed by Max, who told the guy to wake up, because it was time for work. The guy was interested in who their target would be today. The man pointed him in the direction, but Alex jumped up and could not see anything in front of his eyes, so the man threatened to beat the guy up and told him to look ahead. After the guy turned around, Max again pointed him in the right direction. The boy had a school in front of his eyes. The man said that the contract with this school was signed for a year. He was worried whether the guy would be able to cope with the task alone. Alex reminded his interlocutor that he was no longer a child. The man wouldn't have worried about him if it had been any other place, but this high school was hardly a safe place. Rumor has it that the entire school was teeming with juvenile delinquents. The main character was surprised by the information he received, but he had no choice. The guy saw a bunch of impudent teenagers in front of him. They threw their garbage wherever they wanted. Everything had changed, but it didn't look like peace had finally come to Japan. Now there are only more juvenile delinquents, and even the police are not the law for them in Max's opinion. Everything has only gotten worse. The guy got mad and said that littering is not allowed. The main character was too correct, which is why Max worried about him so much, because he was not used to bending over. The man asked him not to start a fight. As he got out of the car, he promised to try not to do this. Now this guy worked for the Yamada cleaning company. The schoolgirls who saw him thought he was simply handsome. Alex headed to school to start his new job. Entering the school building, he saw guys sitting on the stairs in front of him. Alex noticed that they were smoking right in the room and throwing their butts right on the floor. He went towards these teenagers to reprimand them. The main character took a cigarette from one of those sitting and began to put it out. The guy was outraged and did not understand what this cleaner was allowing himself to do. His friends were interested in whether this man worked at the school. The girls passing by noticed the main character's behavior and thought he was cool. Hearing the admiration of the girls passing by, the guys decided to approach the cleaner and ask who he was. Alex told them that from today on he was a janitor at their school, and his name is Alex. He came to bring order to this dirty school. He was pleased to meet these guys. Ahan assumed that his interlocutor was making fun of them because he did not understand how he could have enjoyed meeting them. The main character, without responding to his words, took a blue container out of his pocket, which really scared the guys present. Alex opened it and put the cigarette he had previously extinguished inside. He asked these boys to remember that they must keep this school clean. Ian thought that the cleaner was laughing at them and, clenching his fists, rushed after him. Alex thought about whether he should respond to this aggression, but still decided not to do so. As the fist flew towards his face, he thought that perhaps he should kill this impudent guy right away. Alex remembered what had happened earlier in the office of the mafia boss. The man sat and talked about how people thought they didn't know anything about murder. They underestimated his guys. But if everything had been exactly like that, then there would not have been such a young genius as Alex in their society. He was inhuman, cold-blooded, and antisocial. The man knew that people born in unfavorable conditions are always rejected by society. They cannot find a place for themselves in the ordinary world. And so Alex adapted perfectly to life in the dark. From a young age, he learned to kill like no one else. Thanks to his hands, he will always be able to get food for himself. The man thought that this guy would always have a job. Having thought about all this, he informed his people that he was forced to disband them all. He spoke about how society has changed and that there is no place for murder in the modern world. And so he simply decided to dodge the blow of this bully. Jahan's comrades did not understand what was happening to their friend and told him to aim better. The guy was outraged and told them to shut up. He thought his opponent was just lucky. He continued his attempts to strike the main character, but he deftly dodged, having a lot of experience behind him. The attacker was confident that sooner or later he would still be able to hit his opponent. The guys watched what was happening from the sidelines and did not understand how the cleaner managed to dodge the blows so easily. Ahan was very exhausted by this competition. He leaned over from fatigue and a pack of cigarettes fell out of his pocket. Alex calmly picked it up and assumed it was trash. He looked at his opponent and said that trash belongs in the trash can. Those watching from the sidelines thought Alex was cool and couldn't believe that he was a cleaner. Rick called them idiots and suggested that they were simply scared of the man. He walked up to the main character and grabbed him by the shirt. Alex didn't expect that any of these people would have the courage to behave in such a way. He definitely had some martial arts experience. Rick told the guy not to get cocky just because he managed to dodge a few blows from a small fry. Since Alex was new to the place, the guy decided to tell him about the local rules. He didn't care that his interlocutor was already an adult. Rick promised to crush him if he climbed on him and his guys. He told the main character to crawl under the bench and not stick his head out from there. Alex wondered if this guy was going to hit him. After all, he allowed this man to grab him, and he couldn't believe that after that he would just leave like that. After what was said, Alex grabbed the guy by the shoulder. Rick was surprised by such impudence of his interlocutor. A teacher walking down the corridor accidentally overheard a conversation between two schoolgirls. They talked about Alex, considering him a cool, handsome guy with a pleasant voice, but from his appearance it was difficult to tell that he was older than them. The girls were interested in whether he would stay at their school. Hearing that he was older than them, the teacher wondered who they could have meant. She thought that the new janitor was already at school. The girls were wary that he had gotten involved with Rick and his gang, because these guys could kick him out of school. One of the students, noticing the teacher in front of her, rushed towards her, calling her Amichka and asking for help. But the girl told her to address the teacher properly, stop chatting about random things and go to class. The girls promised to think about it and walked away from her. The teacher continued her route down the hallway, thinking that Rick had already gone too far. He bullies other children and adults can't do anything about it. All the teachers simply turned a blind eye to his behavior, and this girl was also afraid of him. Her thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a schoolboy who reported that a fight was taking place on the stairs. And then this teacher decided that she had to gather her courage and stop what was happening. When she approached the indicated place, a crowd of students had already gathered there. She demanded that Rick stop immediately. However, having squeezed through the crowd, the girl was very surprised. This hooligan's entire gang was lying on the floor. She couldn't understand what had happened there. Looking at her, the main character assumed that she was a teacher and asked the girl about it. He said that he decided to play a little with her students and apologized to the girl for it. The guy said that he didn't swing his fists or hit any of these guys, so he thought everything should be okay. The girl thought for a moment and told Alex about her dismissal. The main character did not expect such a turn of events, but then she said she was joking and promised to tell her all the details a little later. The girl saw a door in front of her and entered it. It was the janitor's room that she brought Alex to show him. He looked around and called this place his refuge. The teacher was surprised that he called this room that, and the guy apologized to her for the fact that she had to show him everything. It's just that when he got the job, they promised to show him everything on the spot, so he knew absolutely nothing about this school. But the girl told him not to worry. After all, he was new. She found it strange that on his first day at work, the school did not provide him with a guide. And then she offered to explain to him how to use all the equipment. Alex believed that if information was not provided to him in advance, then he should use someone who could provide it to him. This girl will be able to become an insider and leak him all the necessary information. The room was locked and the teacher had nowhere to run, but she continued to behave carelessly, showing him how the household appliances in his room worked. The main character noticed that this girl had a beautiful figure. However, he was sure that she had no fighting skills. She is so kind to a person she meets for the first time. Alex needed to check if she could be an informant. In that case, he should have built a friendly relationship with her, and the main character finally decided to introduce himself to her. The girl was slightly confused, but he explained that he simply wanted to introduce himself. The teacher remembered that she still hadn't introduced herself either and apologized for that. Her name was Ami Hashino, and she was the homeroom teacher of Class 2B. Then the main character simply called her by her first name, and the girl was surprised that he had dropped all formalities and called her that way. The guy thanked Ami for her kindness and promised to be grateful to her for the rest of his life. The girl was a little frightened by this wording, but was always ready to help him. She asked him to tell her what happened to Rick and all the other guys, and it seemed to her that this guy was not violent. The main character said that he just collected trash. Ami didn't immediately understand what he meant by trash. And then Alex decided to get out his container where he put cigarette butts. The guy was surprised that these guys were smoking on school grounds. The teacher apologized to him, but he did not understand what she was apologizing for. The girl didn't know where to start. She didn't want to be rude at all, but she still decided to tell Alex that in this school it was not worth standing out unnecessarily. She thought that Alex was lucky this time, but among the senior students there were much more dangerous guys. After that, she said goodbye to the guy, saying that she still had a lesson. The main character realized that it would be quite difficult for him to make friends with everyone. After what happened, the kids in the class made fun of Rick. They didn't understand how he could lose to the new janitor. The whole school already knew about what happened. Rick was upset and asked his classmate to just shut up. Eric continued to make fun of him and asked him not to get so upset. Otherwise, this strongest second year could be called a crybaby. The girls thought these boys were real barbarians because they were constantly fighting for some kind of title. Shoko Hirose believed that this was the reason they were so unpopular. Eric told her to shut up. He believed that girls were not destined to understand them. The boy noticed his classmates discussing the new janitor, calling him handsome. One of them thought he could fight well. The girls thought that their classmates had no chance because he managed to defeat them without landing a single blow. One of her classmates asked if Anna had seen this handsome man. However, the girl did not see him, and she was interested in whether he was really that cool. His classmates said he looked like a real idol. In that case, Anna was sure that they would definitely meet soon. The girls realized that they had started to discuss this guy too often. They were surprised that Anna didn't even bat an eyelid when she heard about him. Most likely, she behaved this way because she was already used to hanging out with handsome guys. One of the guys thought that the girls talked too much about this guy, and Eric didn't understand why they thought the janitor was a hottie because he was sure that he was some old man. Eric believed that at this rate his classmate would soon lose all his reputation. He was interested in how long Rick was going to let this guy do whatever he wanted. He understood everything perfectly well. but he considered this guy a really dangerous person. Rick believed that in a one-on-one fight, it was unlikely that any of them would be able to defeat him, but his classmate disagreed. The guy told this second year not to talk nonsense. He was sure that Raphael would not allow this man to be insolent any longer on X territory. Rick tried to prove to this third grader that this guy was really strong, but the third grader decided to insult him back by suggesting that he had a sponge instead of a brain. Raphael believed that if this guy was really that strong, then he needed to find his weak spots and hit them. He believed that newcomers should know their rules, and one of them was that there were no rules in their fights. Ami walked down the school corridor, heading to class for her lesson. When she was overtaken by armed high school students, one of them called out to the teacher. The girl did not understand what these hooligans could want from her. Meanwhile, Alex slammed the book shut in the janitor's room, finally getting a little bit of an idea of the rules for cleaning the school grounds. He decided to just follow the instructions and do his job, when suddenly he heard some kind of rumble in the hallway. The guy ran out to check what had happened. He found a smartphone lying on the floor. Alex didn't understand where he could have come from. On this smartphone, a video call was open, and in the picture was a tied-up and bewildered teacher. The girl asked for help. She hoped that someone would definitely save her. The guy asked if this smartphone belonged to her and heard the answer yes. Then he tried to find out from her where she was now. But unfortunately, she didn't know this. She only knew that the second-year students did it. One of the guys turned the camera on himself and said that the game had started and it was called Find the Hidden Teacher. The protagonist's time was limited, and if he doesn't hurry, Amichka could get seriously hurt. The video stopped at this point. The main character looked at the dim screen and did not understand where to look for this girl. He couldn't understand how everything turned out this way. The girl was still sitting tied up on the floor, and her students were watching her. The guy who entered the office didn't understand why they were so close to her, because he was supposed to be the first to try her out. The hooligans greeted Masood, calling him elder. This third-year student considered it important to present himself correctly. He was the second strongest among the third years and Goda's right hand, and he also considered himself a true gentleman. Having uncovered the girl's face, Masuda looked at her and said that she was beautiful. He did not understand why he had not met her before. Rick ran into the office and asked the guy to stop. He believed that the hostage should not have been touched because she was completely defenseless. Masuda got angry. He didn't understand whether this brat was really going to tell him what to do. This crazy third-year student didn't give a damn about the girl, and if he wanted, he could even hit her. Their discussion was interrupted when they heard a bang. The cleaner brazenly entered the room without asking permission from those inside. Masuda picked the teacher up from the floor and said that Alex had arrived just in time. He had heard that the janitor had given the second years a good lesson, but if he made even one wrong move now, the woman standing in front of the bully would be in big trouble. But Alex said that apparently these guys had misunderstood something because he didn't care about her at all. The school children couldn't believe his words. After his words, Ami was even more frightened, and Alex just came up to her and asked if he could throw away her smartphone. From the photograph, he immediately realized that this thing belonged to her. Having picked it up, the guy wasn't sure if he could throw it away, so I decided to come and ask about it personally. Masuda interrupted him, suggesting that the man had no idea what was going on. All the school children standing behind the main character began to warm up. Their leader ordered the cleaner to be obedient and prepare his face. He gave the order to the second years not to leave a single living place on this guy's body. They all rushed into battle, but the main character was very agile and was able to dodge in such a way that these guys hit each other. He sat down and waited until they flew off in different directions. And after that, he stood in front of Masuda and the teacher again. Ralph, who was standing behind him, thought that this was his chance and rushed at the guy. Alex was open from behind, and so the guy was confident of his victory. But the main character skillfully dodged again, and the attacker struck the third-year student straight in the face. The guy was annoyed. He didn't understand where this boy was aiming, and Ralph simply decided to apologize to him. Eric rushed into the attack with a cry. He managed to catch Alex off guard. He again rushed at the main character, having first asked him to prepare his face. Eric swung his leg. He was sure that the cleaner was about to feel like a football, but instead of Alex, it was Masuda who received the blow. They couldn't understand how this guy managed to dodge their attacks so deftly. The guys assumed that Alex didn't care what happened to their hostage. Alex adjusted his cap and said that he hadn't touched any of them with even a finger. But Masuda told him to shut up and stop dodging the blows. The guy should have instead exposed himself to them. Rick decided it was time for payback. He was sure that such speed and power would be difficult to avoid, and finally he landed a direct hit on the main character. And Masuda even praised him for it. calling him a good guy. However, Alex landed right on top of him. The guy was outraged. He thought that the cleaner did it on purpose, but Alex didn't understand what he was talking about, because it was he who was being beaten. So the guy told the main character to shut up and get off him. Alex decided that he no longer needed to be a punching bag, since the hostage was safe. All they could do was run away. Upon realizing this, Masuda became very angry, and the cleaner wanted to ask these guys one last question and hoped to hear an answer from them. Kidnapping, violence, attempted rape, all of these were crimes in this country. He asked the school children if he was right. They thought it was all self-defense. Masuda reminded them of their rule. If someone is beaten, he must beat back. After these words, the main character decided to take action and hit the guy on the nose with all his might. The effort put in was enough to knock out this third year. Alex said that he was forbidden to fight, but since they had such a rule, he had no other choice. Everyone present looked at the main character in surprise. They did not understand what kind of power he possessed that he could easily knock out this guy. But the guy simply called his actions self-defense. Ami remembered that during her time at school, everything suddenly changed, and her classmates started to ruin her things. They mocked and ridiculed her. The girl did not know the reason for their behavior. There was absolutely no one on her side. And because of this, the schoolgirl was in despair. No one knew what she had to go through. The girl could not talk to her parents about this topic. She hoped that at least the teachers could help her, but they simply turned a blind eye to what was happening. School time was a real torture for Ami, and there was not a single hope on the horizon. No matter how much this girl dreamed, she could not imagine a future in which she would be happy. Very often the thought came to this girl's mind that she no longer wanted to live, and only the dream of becoming a teacher made her rise and move forward, and finally she achieved her goal. Ami dreamed of being a good teacher who was always with her students. She had to help them because children shouldn't suffer, but the reality turned out to be much worse than she imagined. From where she was, this girl could not see everything that was happening in the school. And even teachers got into trouble with particularly problematic students. In such cases, her hands were tied and every day she was weighed down by her own helplessness, until a new cleaner appeared before her eyes. The girl interrupted her memories and returned to reality. After Masuda was defeated in self-defense, all the other intruders fled. Alex took Ami by the hand and quickly led her away from this terrible place. A little later, another teacher found a boy lying unconscious on the floor. But Masood decided not to tell anyone anything, because he did not want anyone to know that he was defeated by the cleaner, and therefore no rumors were spread about this incident. The third-year students who wanted to crush the main character are doing nothing for now and remain silent. They believed that their new cleaner was capable of something after all, and decided to declare a temporary truce. Meanwhile, the main character was getting ready for a date with Ami in the janitor's room. When he was getting ready for a date, he thought that if he dressed too brightly, he would be conspicuous. He believed that it was better to look respectable and not flashy. Max teased the guy that he had only recently started working and was already getting ready for a date. The man did not understand why the main character called him, and then the guy asked him to rate his appearance. Max looked at him and said that he had no sense of style, but the guy insisted that he had collected all the information about the latest fashion trends. Then the man laughed and said that his sense of style was like that of a schoolboy. He was sure that Alex did not understand at all what a woman wanted. Max was sure that adult women need a strong male shoulder because they fall in love only with a reliable and respectable man. For this, a hairstyle, perfume, and suit were needed. The man told the protagonist to look at him and said that everything about him should radiate respectability. Alex said that he heard his interlocutor, but it was already time for him to go. Max couldn't believe this guy was going to go on a date looking like that. The main character didn't answer him at all, but simply silently left the room. The man watched him. He was not sure that his comrade would cope. Alex approached the shopping center building and began to wait for the teacher. Soon Ami came up and greeted the guy. The girl, as always, looked stunning. She asked how long the young man had to wait for her, but he replied that he had only just arrived. The girl looked very attentively at the main character, and he, not understanding what was going on, decided to ask her about it. And then Ami asked why the guy didn't put his chain around his neck. Alex told her that hanging it around her neck was dangerous and impractical in a fight. The girl invited the main character to come inside. After first asking if he drank alcohol, she was happy to receive a positive response and promised to show the guy one restaurant. Annie brought the guy to this restaurant. In gratitude for saving her, the teacher decided to treat the boy. She was already getting ready to fry some meat, but the main character stopped her, saying that he would do the frying. Amy was a little confused and said that his phrase sounded a little ambiguous. Despite this, he still decided to take up cooking meat. He immediately laid it out in neat rows directly over the coals, and a pleasant aroma of fried meat quickly appeared in the room. Ami couldn't believe her eyes and assumed that Alex was a pro at this. And he began to talk about how, if cooked incorrectly, thick pieces of marbled beef can be tough and inedible. However, if you understand the nature of meat and take into account the direction of the fibers, it will definitely turn out soft and tasty. And then Ami will be able to enjoy the rich taste of marbled beef. Alex took one of the pieces and handed it to his companion, inviting her to try it. Ami was surprised that the main character knew so much about cooking meat. The guy replied that in his previous job he had to understand meat, but he thought to himself that he was cutting it, not eating it. The girl took a piece of meat and was about to try it, and the main character wished her bon appetit. She liked it so much that she simply fell in love with the taste. The girl realized that the cooking method can completely change the taste of meat. With the beer, she liked the meat even more, and Alex suggested that she eat another piece if she really liked it that much. The girl asked Alex if she could drink more that day. He gave her the go-ahead for this action, promising to take her home afterwards. A slightly tipsy Ami asked the main character if he had a girlfriend. Alex calmly replied that he didn't have one. The girl jumped up and approached him. She was interested in whether he was telling her the truth, but he again answered quite calmly that he did not have a girlfriend. She found it strange, because in her opinion, this guy should be popular among girls, and the main character, on the contrary, believed that she should be popular among men. But the girl thought that he was talking nonsense, because there were only students and old teachers around her. Alex wanted to know if she was interested in older men or, on the contrary, younger ones. But the girl thought that in this case there would be too much difference. And in general, Ami believed that the teacher had no time for love. The main character looked at the teacher and wondered if now was the right moment to ask her about school. And yet he made up his mind and said that if his interlocutor didn't mind, he would like to talk about school. But Ami couldn't tell him anything special about it. She considered it to be just an ordinary school like any other. There were those who bullied and those who were bullied. And irresponsible adults turned a blind eye and did absolutely nothing about it. The girl didn't think that everything should remain this way, but she couldn't do anything about it. She considered herself just as pathetic. Ami didn't understand why everything wasn't going the way she wanted. The interlocutor decided to cheer her up and said that he was no better either. He said that he had only recently started working as a cleaner and did not even know about the self-defense rule. The girl decided to tell him a little about self-defense. She thought that it was not worth going too far. Alex indignantly asked if he had gone too far, but the girl, without answering his question, said that despite this, she was grateful to him for saving her. She liked that the main character pacified the students with almost no force. The girl sincerely admired him. Ami believed that if she were as strong as he was, she would definitely be able to change everything. She wondered how Alex learned all this. Alex said that this was all due to his experience from his previous job, but many companies in the modern world do not welcome violence, so he had a hard time finding a new job. The girl was interested in where he had worked before, but she decided to wait a little with this question. She decided to move closer to her interlocutor and told him that she had a request. The girl wanted Alex to teach her. The guy didn't immediately understand what his interlocutor was talking about. And then she explained that she wanted to make these guys obey her without violence. Alex thought that this could work to his advantage, since this way he could get information from her more effectively. This way his informant will always be close at hand. So he decided to agree, and Ami was incredibly happy about it. Then the main character announced that he had one condition. This made the girl wary, and she wanted to know what condition he was talking about. And then he explained that Ami would have to tell him about everything that happened at school. The girl was surprised that this condition was so simple, but Alex said that it was very important for him to know what was going on around him. Ami easily agreed to his condition and offered to exchange contacts. She was very happy to have gotten Alex's number. Alex reported that he now had 2 contacts in his phone book. The girl was surprised that she was second, assuming that someone from the family had been first. The protagonist thought that his brother might well fit the description of the family. Ami assumed that they were talking about the older brother and thought that Alex had a difficult situation in his family. She thanked the guy for agreeing to help her and said that she would now count on him. When they left the restaurant, Alex asked the girl to come to him, but she did not understand what had happened. He put his arm around the girl's waist and slightly bent her over. Then he touched her stomach and Ami asked him to let her go. After letting the girl go, Alex apologized to her. He felt Ami's good abs and assumed that she worked out a lot. She was a little confused by the question and said that she was at an age where it was easy to gain extra weight, and that was why she was into fitness and going to the gym. The girl suggested that he leave before they attracted too much attention, and the main character agreed with her. Ami suddenly stared at the people walking in front of them. Alex assumed that she saw her friends. The teacher said that it was a student from her class, and then the guy thought that she was walking with her father. But the girl wanted to check if this girl had gotten herself into something bad, and she suggested that Alex follow them a little. He didn't object to this, and then they went after these people. Ami began to hide in various shelters. Alex told the girl that she shouldn't hide like that, but should just walk calmly. The girl didn't understand why he thought so. The guy thought that in this crowded place it would be easier for them to blend in with the crowd, and unnatural behavior would stand out too much. Ami decided that her interlocutor was right. The guy thought that they shouldn't go straight after the pursued, but should do it slightly diagonally. If possible, it is better to walk on the sidewalk on the other side of the street. This couple had to do everything to ensure that those being pursued did not find out their intentions. Since their target was Ami's student, who might recognize her, then in that case they would have to pretend that they were going about their business and did not notice this girl and the man with her. The girl noticed that Alex knew quite a lot about the topic of stalking. The guy explained that he had previously had to do this at his job, and the girl thought that he could work as a detective. But she decided that it would be better for them not to get distracted. Then Alex asked her not to worry because he was sure that he would definitely not lose them. They noticed that the man hugged the girl, and this made them wary. Ami thought that these hugs were not at all like her father's, and her companion suggested that the two might be dating. The girl assumed that this man was her sugar daddy. The main character did not understand the meaning of this word and asked the girl again. She explained that this is what they call a man with whom people date and sleep only for money. Thinking that this was some kind of part-time job, the main character praised the girl. But the teacher believed that there was nothing to praise her for. Ami couldn't get her head around all this because this girl was a decent student with good grades, and her family was an ordinary average one. Alex said that people are not always what they seem, and then the pursuers noticed how these two turned somewhere. Ami was very excited. She didn't understand where these two went. The main characters stood in the middle of the street and looked around. Suddenly they heard the voice of a girl screaming that they had not agreed on this. She reminded the man that he had said that they would only have dinner, and he hoped that she already understood everything. He continued to persuade her, saying that they would do it quickly. The teacher rushed to the girl's aid, asking what the man was doing. Then he let the girl go and pretended that they were just talking. He asked if she knew the girl who was running towards them. However, the schoolgirl did not answer and simply ran away in the opposite direction. Alex looked menacingly at the man and asked what he was going to do with the girl. This man didn't understand why they cared about his actions and just wanted them to go away. Ami said that she was responsible for this girl because she was a teacher. The man then asked if the girl was from high school and called the whole thing nonsense. The main characters heard someone's voices. It was a crowd of people discussing that someone had run away with a client. One of the girls recognized the teacher and asked if it was her, but Ami could not understand what she was doing at such a late hour. The teacher was about to express her assumptions, but the girl stopped her. Ami could not turn a blind eye to such actions. A guy from the crowd suggested that everyone calm down and asked the teacher for forgiveness. He suggested not to waste time and effort. This guy's name was Nariyuki Sanzo, and he worked for a service that matched wealthy men with young, energetic girls. He talked about how there are dating apps, and their organization does the same thing. The teacher believed that they were corrupting minors, since the girl was still underage. However, the guy was sure that it was not they who were to blame, but the man who tried to forcefully take the girl to the hotel. The client was outraged because it was they who did not tell him anything about her age. The guy reminded him that he had said that the girl was still in high school, and the man began to argue, saying that he had not been told anything at all. Then an agency employee approached him and punched him in the face. He insisted that he had warned the old goat. Grabbing the man who had fallen from the blow by the scruff of the neck, the guy again apologized to the main characters and promised to take this client to the police. Ami wanted to stop them, but Alex, taking her by the shoulder, said that although all this looked very suspicious, they had no evidence at all. The teacher was forced to agree with him. The next day at school, the kids discussed what happened. Anna didn't understand what their teacher and cleaner had forgotten in that place. One of the schoolgirls suggested that they were looking for a love hotel. However, Anna did not consider teacher Hoshino to be such a person. She decided to change the subject and said that yesterday she watched the broadcast on Rautiva and wanted to buy the very cosmetics from the review. But the girls thought that with it, she would look uglier. They believe that different cosmetics suit different people and a person should use what suits him. But Anna should be a beauty with any cosmetics. Rosie noticed the girl from the hotel yesterday and approached her to find out if Amichka had called her to her place after school. She warned her classmate not to dare tell the teacher anything. Frightened, Angie didn't know how to behave. As Rosie left, she hoped that her classmate had heard her. The guy watching what was happening thought that this girl was really annoying him. Alex was about to start cleaning, and I thought that there were too many people in the corridors during breaks, so I decided to start it further away from the classrooms. He was about to start work when he heard a voice demanding that he give it all to him. The second man insisted that this was all he had. These sounds came from the women's toilet, and then the guy decided to check what was going on there. He found several students there. One of them said that her interlocutor was offering pennies. She did not understand why this girl could not go with him to the hotel. Angie reminded that they had not agreed on this, but her interlocutor was confident that the client's wishes were law. No matter what Rosie said, the girl thought it was wrong. Anna was interested in who her classmate was looking at. She believed that her classmate had decided to enter this business on her own. Anna said that she was not the girl's assistant, because she was simply asked to act as an intermediary. She hated such people, unprofessionals who could never finish what they started. The girl standing behind Anna thought she was ruthless. Not hearing her whispering friends, Anna reminded her classmate that her job was to hug stupid but rich adults and get good money for it. And then it was Rosie's turn, who had to blackmail a rich client for groping a minor. Rosie considered their group to be professionals, and therefore asked her classmate to do her job professionally. After listening to all the arguments, Angie agreed with them. The girls were pleased with her answer, but they still had one important task to complete. Rosie told her offending colleague to stand still and not move. She was going to pour water on the girl right in the toilet. Turning on the tap, she doused the girl with cold water from head to toe. Anna thought Rosie had gone too far with this idea, but she considered it necessary, because if Angie caught a cold and left school early, she wouldn't have to meet with Amichka. They were interrupted by a male voice, which informed them that this girl no longer needed to go to the teacher. The guy told them that he had filmed everything that happened on his phone. This guy was Alex, who intended to pass this video on. Rosie was outraged by his behavior. She did not understand why this man entered the women's toilet. For this, she called the cleaner a pervert who should be ashamed of his behavior. However, the main character did not understand what was shameful in his behavior. After all, he came to the toilet with only one purpose: to do his job. The girls thought he was crazy and thought they should just leave. As she left, Rosie promised to set the Yakuza on the guy if anything from their conversation came to light. After hearing this, the main character began to think that the Yakuza were still left in their country. Meanwhile, the Yakuza lived a new life. The former boss of the Yamada clan was now the president of the Yamada cleaning company. He was talking in his office with a man who was suggesting using the Yakuza as bodyguards for the stars, but the man couldn't imagine such a thing. The boss believed that since there was no internet before, all the shady dealings were easy to hide. Now with just one little throw-in, it's easy to ignite hatred and heated debates. He believed that without the information known to former Yakuza on the ground, there would not have been so many revelations. He found it funny that Japan had become a peaceful country so quickly. The boss said that his company was now officially registered, and he believed that there were few ordinary Yakuza left in their country. The young man thanked the company's president for his cooperation, because thanks to him, he learned a lot of new information. After the girls left the school toilet, Alex began his duties. Angie decided to try to dry her clothes by hanging them on the wall of the toilet cubicle. While cleaning up, the guy thought about the fact that the Yakuza might still be afloat, but it was too early to talk about it. Moreover, at that moment it was not so important. It was much more important to understand what was happening in the school. His thoughts were interrupted by a girl who thanked him for lending her his jacket. The young man asked what class she was in and promised to try to bring her a change of clothes. Angie became even more upset than before, saying that she didn't have a change of clothes with her, and besides, she had nowhere to go. The guy told her that she could stay in the toilet until he finished cleaning, because no one would enter it at that time anyway. The girl was surprised that he was not angry with her. However, the main character did not understand why he should be angry if he knew nothing about what happened. Angie didn't understand him, because he saw her with that man, but Alex thought that he had no reason to be angry. Besides, he didn't fully understand the meaning of the word sugar daddy. The girl laughed and called the cleaner strange. She decided to tell him about the dirty money she received for what she did. Then the cleaner decided to find out if she really needed the money that much. And the girl said that she was simply lured by the opportunity for easy money. She said that before she was only paid for dates, and she never imagined that things would come to this. The protagonist stood right in front of her and said that if she wanted to share her problems, she could tell him everything. Angie couldn't understand since when consultation became part of a cleaner's job, but Alex believed that the safety of the students was directly related to the cleanliness of the facility, and his job is to support her. He believed that it was his responsibility to create an environment in which it would be easier to keep clean. Angie didn't know what else she could talk about with this man and decided to tell him that she was a member of an art club and that after finishing school she wanted to go to art college, but she needed money for that. But it would be hard for her family to pay for her education, and because of this, her parents were against her choice, so she decided to earn money herself. Alex praised her for this, saying that from the moment he was born he did everything exactly as his parents told him, never deciding anything on his own. However, the schoolgirl believed that she had done nothing at all to deserve praise. The guy agreed that she had chosen a disgusting way, but advised her not to give up on her dream and just find another way to make it come true. The schoolgirl was very grateful to him for these words of support, but she didn't know what to do with this whole situation now. After all, if she quit this job, the girls would call their friends. Angie was very afraid of what they could do to her. After listening to this girl, the main character decided to deal with this business, and at the same time with the friends of Anzi's classmates. After finishing cleaning, Alex went to his room and invited Ami there. He decided to share the information he had obtained with the teacher. The girl believed that she should have listened to her student and apologized to her interlocutor for this. Alex thought that everything happened for the best. He was not sure that the girl would have decided to tell the whole truth to her teacher. The girl agreed with him, but she was interested in whether Angie had decided to leave this business. Amy was very happy to hear that the girl was going to find a decent part-time job. Alex believed that they needed to do something about this business, because if they continued to sit idly by, there might be more victims. The teacher agreed with this. The janitor remembered that Ami wanted to talk to the very student who started all this, but the girl said that she simply didn't come to her after school. She thought it would be worthwhile to just call her and talk about everything directly, but Alex believed that they wouldn't be able to change anything this way. Besides, he thought that if they dealt with this girl, those guys would simply put another schoolgirl in her place. In his opinion, such organizations were like spiders or other insects. If you tear off one of their legs, they will still be able to move on. To finish them off, you need to hit the body. Ami found this comparison rather strange, and the cleaner did not understand how they could get closer to the center of the organization. The girl remembered that one of those guys on the street said that they were some kind of dating app. After her words, Alex decided that they should look for them on third-party sites or dating apps, and he decided to involve his friend Max in this venture. A girl approached him on the street and thanked the man for waiting for her. She called him uncle and said that he was cool. She admitted to the man that he was her type. Max was glad to hear this and promised to show her how real adult dates go. This girl was glad that she came to this date. She was so naive and stupid that she did not understand anything at all what was happening around her. Max thought that modern children are very stupid. A little later, Alex met a guy at a fight club who had previously talked to the president of the cleaning company. Deputy Max, who entered the building, asked if his friend was also fighting in this place. He was also interested in who this bespectacled man next to him was. The guy had no idea who this person was, so Max assumed that he was Nidobuda's friend. Alex was more interested in what happened to his friend's clothes, but he didn't answer and asked why the guy was dressed like that. The guy said that he needed these clothes to penetrate. The young man in glasses asked why Alex didn't immediately tell him that these clothes were needed for this very purpose. The protagonist noticed that the guy's hostility had disappeared. The man asked permission to chat with the guy lying on the floor. The man asked him to wait a little because he wanted to talk to him himself, and then his interlocutor could do with him whatever his heart desired. Nicholas had nothing against these conditions and let his interlocutor go ahead. The man came up and kicked the guy lying on the floor in the face with all his might. This guy was involved in the story of schoolgirls dating wealthy men. Max was determined and told him to tell him everything he knew, starting with who he worked for. Tim had no intention of giving up his comrades. Then Max decided to continue the beating. He was sure that he could get the truth out of this man. He wondered if the boy had changed his mind. The man was cold-blooded and dealt blow after blow. Violence was commonplace for him. After inflicting numerous blows, Max asked Tim to choose whether he would rather lose the fingers on his right hand or his right foot. Looking at this man, the beaten guy realized what the Yakuza really are. It was clear to Max that these guys had started this whole business themselves, without permission from above. He was interested in where Midorikikai was located, Tim insisted that he couldn't tell anything, otherwise he would be killed. Max continued to press and told the guy to choose one finger to start with. After this, Tim understood the seriousness of this man's intentions. He said that they were based on a farm outside the city. It looked like an ordinary farm that did not attract attention. Max asked Alex what they planned to do next, and he replied that his goal was to cover up the sugar daddy business. The man concluded that his friend wanted to stop at this particular place. Since the two were already finished, Nicholas asked permission to take care of the rest. Max finally couldn't hold back and asked the guy with glasses who he was. He replied that at the moment he was definitely not their enemy. Max remembered the saying, "The enemy of my enemy." My friend and boyfriend agreed with him. Nicholas handed the boys some stickers and asked them to stick them in prominent places. He then asked them to leave through the front entrance, as he was sure that they would not be able to do so through the back entrance. Max said goodbye to the guy with glasses and asked him to clean up after them. The members of the juvenile gang believed that Nicholas was immortal. They did not understand what he could do to them alone. He chuckled and called those present empty-headed idiots. He couldn't believe that these people thought he had come here alone. Angie was very scared to see so many fighters outside. But the main character explained that this sticker was needed so that they could leave peacefully. Nicholas, who remained in the hall, began to throw around the guys present there. Rosie, who had fallen to the floor, did not understand what he was doing because she thought that they were not bothering anyone at all. Nicholas suggested that if she knew about Midorikikai, then perhaps she was familiar with both cats and chips. He was interested in whether the girl had heard of them, but the girl hadn't heard anything about them. The guy was sure that it was she who started this mess. However, the girl insisted that Anna did all this. She explained in detail to her classmate what she should do. Anna was very angry that her friend cracked so quickly. Nicholas walked up and punched Rosie in the face. The girl did not understand why she received this blow. The guy was sure that she was lying and that it was she who started this business. Rosie burst into tears, trying to prove that it wasn't really her idea. But this guy didn't care which of them did it. He decided from the very beginning that he would beat the face of this girl. Rosie didn't understand why this man chose her to beat. And then Nicholas called Anna a beauty whom he could not beat, but his interlocutor was ugly in his opinion. Having said this, he dealt another blow to the girl. After the girl passed out, he looked at Anna and told her that something different was in store for her. Nicholas believed that this schoolgirl could become one of the best products. Therefore, he needed to be careful with her in order not to break this girl. Finally, the situation with the sugar daddy, which involved Angie, was resolved thanks to Alex and his elder. The police raided the karaoke bar where the entire business was based. Several people were even arrested, but not a single student from the school where Ami worked was among them. But no one has seen Rosie and Anna since then. The school has put the girls on a wanted list and the police are now looking for them. But Ami was still worried about their safety. The teacher noticed that Angie had finally found new friends. One of the girls showed her friends the tickets to a Spade concert that she managed to get. Angie thought about the name of this group. She had never heard of these guys before. The girls were surprised that their friend knew nothing about this group, despite the fact that they were the most popular modern idol group. Then they told her that one of the members of this group, Cheyenne, was a student in their class, but that day he did not come to class. The girls were surprised that Angie really didn't know all this. The girlfriends decided to show her his photo, and the girl very quickly remembered that she had actually seen this guy. Ashley thought he was not very sociable, as he was very difficult to approach, despite the fact that they were in the same class. For this reason, the girls assumed that he does not have relationships with his fans. Ashley decided to ask her friend who she liked, and Lizzie replied that it was definitely Picasso. She thought he had a cool tattoo. The girls asked her if she liked tattoos. Lizzie thought tattoos were really cool, so she decided to find out how Angie felt about them. The girl thought for a moment and began to draw something in her notebook. She showed her drawing to her friends and asked if such tattoos were considered. The girls noted that only the Yakuza get such tattoos, and they are not considered fashionable. They assumed that if there was anyone left with such a tattoo, it was most likely some old man. Angie couldn't help but say that she didn't care about his age at all. The girls did not immediately understand what their friend meant, and Ashley concluded that she liked calm and mature men, behind whom she felt like she was behind a stone wall. Eric accidentally overheard this conversation. He didn't understand what kind of nonsense they were talking about, and then his friend told him that these girls were making plans to capture hearts. Despite this explanation, he still could not understand the essence of their conversation. Then Ralph explained to him in more detail what they were thinking about how to win the heart of a grown man. Eric could not understand who they wanted to conquer. Ralph suggested that it might be their cleaner. Eric couldn't believe it. And then his friend, calling himself a master of love, promised to give him advice. The guys laughed at him, asking if he had ever had a girlfriend. They considered their friend a virgin, but he told them to shut up because unlike these two, he had dating experience. Ralph talked about having a girlfriend in elementary school. Noticing the looks of his friends, he asked them not to look at him like that. This guy believed that the secret of love was very simple, and it lay in constant contact. Love is constant walks and constant communication. Rick thought that their friend was saying the obvious. But despite this, Eric decided to take his words into account. The lunch break began and everyone went to the canteen. Eric approached his classmates sitting at the table and invited Ashley to hang out with him after class. But she refused without a moment's hesitation. Noticing his puzzled look, the girl explained that the tournament would take place soon, and she had a lot of things to do in the club. Eric realized that he had completely forgotten about her track and field club and asked her to meet him after the club. Without giving an answer, Ashley asked why the guy left the football club. But Eric did not understand what this had to do with their conversation. The girl asked him to stop hanging out with all sorts of delinquents because he was her childhood friend, and because of his behavior, they looked at her strangely. Eric was angry that she started lecturing him. He thought that she didn't care who he was talking to. Ashley got up from the table and decided to leave the dining room, but as she left, she said that this guy could talk to whoever he wanted. Angry at her behavior, the guy cursed and kicked a nearby chair. After class, Ashley went to track and field. She studied very hard. The guy keeping time praised her, saying that she had done very well, and Ashley laughed and said that next time she would run last. Eric watched what was happening from the side. He knew that Ashley had to finish soon, and if he waited for her a little, then they would definitely spend time together. While waiting, he heard some strange sounds and decided to go see what was going on. Looking around the corner, he saw the main character with Ami. The girl did not understand why they should do this at school, and Alex insisted, saying that doing it in the mornings and evenings is not enough. Alex asked if this was her first time, but the girl said that she had practice. But it was too long ago, and her body did not remember it. Eric didn't understand what these two were doing at school, so he decided to take another look around the corner. He saw the two of them on unicycles and heard the teacher worry that someone might catch them doing it. Unable to bear it any longer, the schoolboy came out of his hiding place and asked what they were doing there. The teacher said it was not at all what he thought, but Eric had no idea about it. Alex said that they were training and invited the guy to join them. He believed that Eric had a good enough punch that these training sessions could be useful for him. The guy didn't understand why the main character became so friendly, because it was him he was trying to beat up back then. But the cleaner believed that it was never too late to start making friends. His master believed that it was better to get along with people rather than rush straight into a fight. The schoolboy thought that the janitor was lying, because he himself sometimes waves his fists, but Alex explained that he only does this when it is necessary. And at that moment he saw no need to fight with his interlocutor. Alex decided to ask what this guy was doing in this alley and why he wandered there. Eric himself didn't understand why he came there. The guy decided to leave them and go away. Then Ami asked him to be careful. As Alex left, he thought about the cleaner's words about a good hit. He remembered how he used to play football. But he thought that it was still better for him to be free with this bunch of idiots and be friends with the senior members of the Midoriki Kai. He believed that this was the best option for him. Eric's thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. Having answered the call, he decided that this was his place. The interlocutor told him that there was a party planned for the weekend and asked if the guy would come to it. Eric was definitely going to attend it. The guy wanted Eric to invite his girlfriend Ashley to the event. He wanted to see her at the party because he needed a new woman. Because all the old ones broke. The guy was sure that Eric wouldn't mind because they were friends. Eric remembered how he used to play football, an argument with a teammate because he didn't pass the ball to him during a game, and how everyone turned away from him, saying that they could not consider someone like him a comrade. That's why he quit football, believing that it would be better to be with his own people. And then a year ago he met Raphael. Eric remembered how upset he was when he lost to his friends in rock, paper, scissors. A guy approached them, wondering if they were the strongest among the first years. Rick asked what this man wanted from them, and he suggested that they have some fun, saying that he likes strong guys like them. They thought this guy was dangerous and were afraid that they would have to fight him. However, instead of fighting, they simply went bowling. Then we sang karaoke. They spent more and more time together with Raphael. They found spending time together to be very fun. Raphael turned out to be completely different. At first, the guys couldn't even imagine that he was such a person. It was after this meeting that Eric decided that there were more fun things than clubs. From then on, he hung out with Raphael every day. They had so much fun until the guy got bored with this kind of pastime. and he decided to show his friends what he considered to be a great place. The guys were surprised to see what was happening in this party spot. There were drugs and alcohol everywhere, and the place looked like a converted abandoned warehouse. Seeing the reaction of his new friends, Raphael assumed that they were still too young for this, since they were only first years. But he was sure that these guys would quickly get used to this environment, and after that they will understand how cool all this is. Eric believed that he could pretend that he hadn't seen this side of Raphael, and then his life would remain just as wonderful. That's exactly what he'd been doing all along, but Ashley wasn't supposed to have to deal with all of this. He decided to call his friends and tell them what had happened. The guys didn't understand why Raphael needed this girl. However, Eric didn't know the answer to this question either. He thought that their friend just wanted to have fun all the time. Ralph decided it was time for the Master of Love to step into the game. Since Raphael just needed a beauty, he decided to seduce some lady and talk her into it. Eric wasn't sure it would help, but his friend insisted that he would have time to pull it off. Ralph was glad that it was finally time for his pickup techniques. He did not hear his friend's attempts to explain to him the reason why they would not be able to replace the girl so easily. The next day at school, Angie went to the janitor's room. Upon entering, the girl apologized for disturbing her. She asked the main character if Max was there, but he didn't understand why she was looking for this man in his room, because he didn't even work at the school. Then the girl said that her friend would like to consult with the main character. Then he decided to remind that he was an ordinary cleaner. Ashley entered the room and said that Angie had told her that it was Alex who helped shut down the sugar daddy business. Alex was interested in whether this consultation was also connected with offenders. This was exactly the case, but the girl did not know where exactly she should start. She thought that Eric and the other boys in their class had been acting very strange lately. The main character did not understand what the girl meant by strange behavior. She told him that they hadn't talked for a long time, and then he suddenly suggested that they hang out together. Ralph also began to actively hit on girls, and she had a forwarded correspondence from her friend to prove it. The girl was interested in whether Alex knew who Raphael was, but he was not familiar with the name. Ashley explained that he was a senior who was always causing a lot of trouble, and 3 of their classmates were just hanging out with him. Angie intervened and said that this guy was one of the performers of Midorikikai. Alex remembered that this was the very organization that dealt with sugar daddies. The girls were afraid that if they didn't intervene now, it might be too late. After listening to the girls, Alex asked what they wanted from him. Ashley really wanted him to help clean up this school. The main character easily agreed to do this, since this situation directly affects the cleanliness of the school.